What a wonderful, wonderful welcome. Cornell, thank you, sir, for your very generous introduction. All you guys behind the elephants, please sit down. I am very, very pleased to be here in this warm environment, in this historic place, having just toured the magnificent China exhibit. If I look slightly peaked, it's because I just returned from my 12th visit to China since leaving the presidency, and I'm jet-lagged out. So I asked my friend Don Feitz, who suggested 2 years ago that I might come here, what to talk about. He said, talk about 25 minutes and then sit down. And I said, well, that's very good, and I'm very pleased to be speaking before the dinner, because if the chef sends any broccoli in here, I'm gone. I'm going back to Texas. I want to thank President Hari. I should say Hari. I'm trying to get the pronunciation of this very complicated name of this wonderful president of this school. And I want to thank the Dean, Gene Honnison, for his hospitality, and everybody in the extended Valparaiso family. You have a wonderful way of making a guy feel at home. And let me just start by saying that I'm deeply honored to have been asked to join this part of the 125th year anniversary of this wonderful law school. And I know this milestone means a lot to every single person in this room. But for the record, I want you to know by being invited here also means a great deal to me for several reasons. First, because I believe in the importance of a first-rate education. And I particularly want to salute the teachers and the professors. And I think it's wonderful that you had this student orchestra here, kids with that enthusiasm for music at Valpo. And Cornell Boggs clicked off some things in my background, you know, the curriculum vitae, resume, but he left out one thing. I was an adjunct professor at Rice University after coming back to Houston in the year 1976 after leaving CIA. And I said to the people, what does adjunct mean? And they said, well, adjunct means you don't get paid a damn thing. So I said, well, you got the right man. And I think several people thought I was overpaid at that. But nevertheless, I discovered that the teachers here will know this, the professors, that the lives you touch, the lives a teacher touch means a lot, hopefully to them, and means a lot to the guy teaching himself. And I want to commend those who dedicate their lives in this very meaningful way. I want to thank Alan Andreas. His family and ours go back a long way, and I would recommend this to you all. Andreas Airways is a lot better than Southwest Airways, and I'm very grateful to him for bringing us up from Houston and back again tonight. I'm not going to give you any advice. Who the heck am I to give lawyers advice? I'm not going to do that, and partially because I remember the words of John F. Kennedy when he spoke to a bunch of stockbrokers. And he goes, if I weren't president, I'd be buying stock right now. Guy in the back jumped up, said, yeah, if you weren't president, I'd be buying stock right now. So I'm not going to go into any advice department here. But let me just add, I'm very honored to be here, considering the many distinguished speakers that you've had in the past, many who have appropriately come from other branches of government, the judicial branch, and suffice it than I was in, the judicial branch, and suffice it to say I have great respect for each of them. But while I'm at it, while I'm talking about it, I might add a kind word for one speaker in particular that you had, and that is my friend, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Of course, every president is different. but I'm sure most who have served in the Oval Office would agree that nominating someone to serve on our nation's highest court is one of the greatest responsibilities that the job of president can involve. And why, you might say? Well, a lot has been written and said about the Supreme Court throughout our history. But perhaps the best summation of it, in my mind, came from a British ambassador to the United States named James Bryce, who many years ago observed that the Supreme Court is the living voice of the Constitution. That is, of the will of the people expressed in the fundamental law that they've enacted. And it is the conscience of the people, and it is the guarantee of the minority who, when threatened by the impatient vehemence of the majority, can appeal to this permanent law, finding the interpreter and enforcer thereof in a court set high above the assaults of factions. It should follow that anyone who swears to uphold the public trust also regards the law with a sense of majesty and awe. And given the oath I took to defend and preserve the Constitution, defend and preserve our system, the 2 times I was confronted with the responsibility of nominating someone to serve on the Supreme Court, I took that responsibility very, very seriously. I might say I'm sorry that there's more and more politics creeping into the idea of who can and who cannot be nominated to serve on the court. Of course, I did not believe in litmus tests. And if you don't believe that, look at Clarence Thomas and David Souter. That's my living evidence that there were no litmus tests. And I have my own political views that I will spare you tonight, but they're both brilliant legal minds, and in my view, both deserve to be justices of the Supreme Court. Of course, as I repeatedly experienced during my 4 years as the chief executive, that other branch of government, the other branch, that was the Congress, in my view, the most mischievous of the 3, had strong feelings about the nomination of Clarence Thomas because, to be candid, in my view anyway, his strict constructionist judicial temperament did not suit the prevailing activist or liberal bent of the Congress at that time. And as such, the opposition leaders fought this nomination. And though previously confirmed, I believe, with no votes against him for the appeals bench, all hell broke loose. And at one point then, Judge Thomas, after this, what he called a lynching, in which the world was caught up in this whole process of confirmation, came down to see me in the White House. And he said, "Mr. President, I think I'm hurting you. I think that maybe we ought to consider my stepping down and not going forward with the nominating, with the screening process." And I walked out on the beautiful South Lawn. You know, you see where the helicopter lands there, the South Lawn of the White House. And I put my arm around him and I said, "Clarence, you can't not do this. You can't pull back. You have to stay in the game, and we'll stay with you." And there's just a little message there that every single person that worked for me, every single person in our administration said, we cannot back off. Not one person recommended that I would be better off if Clarence Thomas stepped down. And thank God he didn't, because he's a great justice on the Supreme Court.